career mistakes. Here are 5 more of them, and here's to you not making them in your corporate career. So these are mistakes that I think I've made upon reflection over the last 3.5 years of a corporate job since leaving university, and also things that I've noticed that I'm, still slipping up on having transferred into a new job and a new department and a new team. So the first one is a big one. It's not trusting yourself. And this is in the context of being able to let go of a client call, a big project, a day's worth of work in order to put yourself first, knowing that the world's not going to end and you're not going to get fired. And it's completely understandable that this self-esteem, this confidence, this trust in yourself is something that would take a long time to build. But in the 3.5 years that I've been working, I realized that, I think the root cause of all problems is self-esteem. All of your problems and my problems are self-esteem. This one is a really good example of it. If you know in yourself that there are things that are outside of your control and there are things within your control, then you know that you cannot control the world ending or a project blowing up or anything bad happening from perhaps you taking an extra holiday, or you taking an extra week's worth of holiday, or you prioritizing, or maybe you prioritizing something that someone else disagrees with. So it's all about that trust in yourself and trust in your environment that would lead to you being comfortable enough to take a day off or reprioritize your working week. And I think building this up can take as little or as long time as you want, and hopefully seeing this video and hearing this point is something that can maybe help you speed up building that self-confidence and that trust in yourself. The second mistake, or perhaps misconception, is that seniority does not always equal knowledge. Never be afraid to question someone senior or question the work that someone senior has done. First of all, everybody makes mistakes. If there's something that you think is not right and you're questioning it, question away. A different perspective and a second pair of eyes is never not going to be helpful for any work that's ever done, ever. It will help the person who did that work learn from their mistakes. And also, even if that work is right, even if you haven't actually spotted a mistake and you're questioning it anyway, it's still going to help you learn. I fully believe that there are no stupid questions in a workplace, and the more questions you ask, the more questions you learn. If you thought something was wrong and you asked about it and it turned out it wasn't wrong, at least now you know why that wasn't the case in any kind of similar work going forward. And also it helps you build a better relationship with your team when you're more comfortable to ask those questions, and really it never hurts to keep people who are senior on their toes. And the third thing is, the ever-evolving mystery tree around imposter syndrome. And a big mistake that I think everyone jumps right into is always trying to solve imposter syndrome and figure out, why is it that we feel it. And I've done this too. I've made videos on previous corporate career mistakes and I've mentioned imposter syndrome. The more I work and the more I continue to feel it, there's 2 questions I kind of want you to ask yourself if and when you feel it. So I want you to sit with that feeling and ask yourself, do you have the right to feel like an imposter in that particular situation? When I moved into my new department, I was 100% an imposter. I was a new person. I was a new person in my role. I was a new consultant. I didn't really have an idea what was going on any more than from the trainings that I had done and the conversations that I had with people. So I was definitely an imposter for like a week, 2 weeks, a month. And that kind of scenario, it is 100% okay to be an imposter. If you're new in your job, your industry, your role, your company, anything, there are times where being an imposter is probably the right thing to be at that particular time and place. And the second question to ask yourself is, if you're feeling this impostery syndrome more often than not, ask yourself if it's your environment and not really you that's making you feel like that. Because most of the time, I think that imposter syndrome can be a symptom of an uninclusive environment rather than you consistently feeling like an imposter. If it is your environment, there could be some deeper work that you could potentially start by trying to make that environment better, or you could leave. The fourth thing is thinking that networking has to be icky. This is a hill I will die on because I have now learned that networking is not icky. I think the word networking is kind of icky, but I think networking is just a series of really good, meaningful conversations with people that you care about. And that doesn't have to be too personal in a work environment. The person you're speaking to, you might care about because of the work they do or the industry that they work in, and you might connect to that on some level. And it doesn't take all this social media and LinkedIn research that you have to do to try and speak to someone and then find something in common and then have that organically come up in a conversation. Have those organic conversations and the right things will come up. The other thing to remember is that, with the right people, you're not going to only ever have one chance, one conversation that you can have with them where you have to cover all of these bases in order for you to move on to the next person or move on to the next thing that you want from this person. If you think of networking and relationship building as a series of conversations and like a long-term relationship with someone, much like a friendship, it takes the ickiness out of it and it takes a lot of pressure off of individual one-off conversations that you have with certain people. Just remember that good networking is simply good conversations and leaving a good impression on someone at the end of the day. Being a good listener, asking relevant questions about someone, not talking about the weather or their working week, and just making a valuable contribution to their day, even if that is, a joke that made them laugh. That's networking, in my opinion. The fifth thing is not necessarily a mistake, but maybe another misconception that could lead to potential mistakes down the line. There is no line between your personal brand at work and your personal brand outside of work. And this doesn't mean to say, always take your work home or that your work defines you, because it certainly doesn't. But this is kind of linked to something I heard on Stephen Bartlett's podcast about having an invisible reputation. If you have an invisible reputation, that reputation is not really going to know the difference between being inside the office and being outside the office, and your reputation outside of the office is going to dictate the way you behave inside the office and vice versa. And if it doesn't, it's a little bit problematic. If you're a totally different person at work versus outside of work, why is that? And that kind of feeds into the imposter syndrome question. Why are there certain elements of yourself that you can't bring to work and that you can't take outside of work? These are the questions that, I've been thinking about when I think about personal brand and your reputation. The elements of my personality that I enjoy, that my friends hopefully enjoy, are the things that helped me do well at work. And when I first got a job, I did not think that, elements of my personality that I didn't think were professional would actually help me in my corporate career. So just think about that every time you make a decision about a piece of work, every time you communicate with someone, are you doing that authentically as yourself, as you would want someone else to do it to you, and is it representative of who you are? Because your personal brand is you. There's no at the pub personal brand and an at the office personal brand. They are one. And the longer you think that there's a separation, the longer it's going to take for that to catch up on you eventually. There's going to be a couple of cracks in the foundation. You will get tired of having to put up two facades, two personalities, and it just won't be worth it. I hope you enjoyed this insight into how my brain works when I reflect on work, and drop any of your misconceptions or mistakes that you've made at work down in the comments below. And I'll see you for the next one.